What if I told you some of the strangest seed starting advice wasn't superstition? It was technically early environmental science. If you're new here, hi, hello, my name's Ashley. I have a bachelor's of science in soil science. I like to take said science and apply it to all things plants and soil. And this is a video that I know is going to piss a lot of people off because it did last time. It wound me up in a Facebook group calling me a fraud. And so for that, I'm going to show you the fact that I actually have a degree. Don't go after the university for giving me this degree. I paid the $20,000. That's why I got it. Okay. Other than that, I'm not that smart. So do with this information what you will. First off, why does this old wisdom even exist? Before there was soil temp thermometers, weather models, seed trials, scientists in general, people relied on patterns. And people had to believe this stuff because it was survival. Making a mistake meant death. Hunger, empty bellies. Think of an entire village of hangry people. Probably not good. You don't want that village of hangry people coming your direction. And if something worked repeatedly, year after year, it became the rule. Similar to why things like bloodletting in medical science back in the day was a thing, because it worked. I guess, apparently. So for example, if they were to plant seeds every time the snow disappeared and repeatedly year after year, everything died because it wasn't warm enough yet in the soil or ambiently, this is a great reason to not continue to plant seeds after the snow disappears. What they call this is observational science. So essentially, it's science without the controlled experiments and the labs and the rigmarole that is today. So I think the tactical takeaway here is that most old wisdom is based on patterns, not magic. And therefore, when it seemed woo-woo, there's probably a pattern there is the reason why it was being followed, not because, the red-headed, left-handed person of the village said, let's do it this way. So number one is planting by the moon. So the idea here is that you plant above ground crops during the waxing moon and root crops during the waning moon. This is the topic that landed me in trouble last time. So why this made sense historically to people who were recognizing patterns is because the moon controlled tides. So people who lived near the ocean would be able to see that it was controlling water. Water is essential for life, and that was known forever as well. And plants move water internally. So they're kind of using logic without modern day physics. But here's what science says about the idea of planting via moon phases. Moon's gravity does affect water, but it only affects larger bodies of water. Soil water, in particular, is held in by capillary action. So this is a very strong force that allows for water to actually travel against gravity. So because it can travel against gravity and it's not part of the free-flowing tides, it's usually not affected by the moon. Seeds germinate through imbibition, which is fully moisture driven and not at all driven by gravity. So because both the soil water and the seed water are driven by gravity, and gravity is the factor that's being altered when the moon is changing, you can see where it doesn't play in that much, or at all. I should be saying at all, not at all. So oddly enough, they have done several reviews and studies on this over the years. And there is no correlation to the moon and seed germination or plant health or soil health or anything like that. So there is no link between soil and plant science and the moon either. But let's stretch the imagination because that's what I like to do. I like to go into hypothetical zones for funsies. So none of this is proven, but it's fun to think about. So moonlight obviously does change some things. For example, the amount of light that your seeds get. So big full moon, it's a little bit more light at night. A non-full moon, whatever it may be. I was born on a full moon, actually, oddly enough. But anyways, there's less light. It's darker. Now, light, regardless if it's your light from a grow light, a light outdoors, the moonlight, street light, all of these affect phytochromes within the plant. And so hypothetically, the phytochromes within the plant are probably being affected. And I have looked at this, and I think I did a video on it a while back. I can't quite remember, but if you guys want a video on phytochromes and streetlights and moonlight and all that sort of thing, let me know. I can do that. It's got no issue. But essentially, what it's doing is it's indirectly affecting microclimates, depending on obviously if it's cloudy or not, that sort of thing. But it's interesting to think about how it does have like a small effect on the plant. Probably in the concrete jungle, it doesn't because there's light all over the place all the time. But outside of the concrete jungle, it may. So I think the pattern that we were recognizing as early humans was more so the seasonal changes that came with the moon. And so in turn, it was easy to line moon phases up with when to start seeds because obviously, as we're headed into warmer months, things are changing in the sky. So I think that's probably where that came from a pattern perspective. The next one is best days to plant on the calendar. Almanacs are notorious for doing this. They have bad and they have good days. There's several calendars that actually will have best fishing days and planting days, and etc. and so forth. So people trust them because they're built from decades of regional observations. So this is kind of where those almanacs fall a little bit short. You can get the Farmer's Almanac, for example, which is, meant for a very wide scope, North America, for example, I believe. And then you can get ones more local, etc. and so forth. So there are some regional observations that go into those calendars. So if it's not meant for your region, may not line up. They often obviously avoid frost windows, logically speaking, and they are reflectant of historical climate patterns. So it is history and people recording historically, when they started their seeds. And I think it's probably logical to say if the village and everyone in the village kept on starting seeds mostly around this day and it performed well, that everyone should just start them on this day. So I think that's probably the pattern that was applied in this case, and now it's been put into a commercial sense. So plants don't actually care about dates, but what they do care about are things like soil temps, ambient temps, the amount of sunlight, hours of sunlight, oxygen availability, seed viability, etc. and so forth. So one of the strongest predictors we know from studies to allow for healthy plant and good germination is actually soil temp, not ambient temp, not hours of light, not oxygen, not moisture, not nutrients. It is the soil temperature that is the biggest win, I guess. So these calendars, unfortunately, will fail you if you plant by them if the microenvironment the plant is in doesn't uphold the proper soil temp in particular, but obviously those other parameters as well. So that's one that I probably encourage you to stay away from, but go into just getting, instead of buying, the calendar planting thing, I would just get a soil temp thermometer. Probably about the same cost, one of which will last you year after year, and you don't have to buy a new one every year. Next one is planting by signs of nature. So I didn't actually know that this one existed until I started researching for this video. And it turns out that people will plant based on first dandelions that are showing up, bird migrations, frog calls, you name it. So what we're looking at here is what we call phenological indicators. So these are biological responses of the environment around your garden in regards to temperatures, hours of light, that sort of thing. So modern agriculture will use different sets, but at the same time, these kind of parameters do line up with these phenological calls, if you will. So for example, growing degree days. I've done, I think, a few videos on this now at this point, but that's a big one that people really, or that farming and food production really hones in on. And these growing degree days or growing degree units actually affect bugs and disease and all these other things. And a huge factor that plays into that is hours of light, temperature, that sort of jazz. We also look at phenological timing and actually insect emergence. So if we're looking at like flea beetles and when they show up, it's a good indicator as to where we're at in the season in regards to whether or not you're too late to actually, or if you're too early. So hint here is you want to start your radishes before you see the flea beetles, because the flea beetles will eat your radishes if they're young. So you want to start them long, long before, or way after the flea beetles have died off. So this folk wisdom actually did eventually become a formal set of rules that are followed, but obviously we're not using frog calls anymore. We're using other factors that we can measure that actually do affect the frog calls. So the frog calls are coming at the same time as the insects are emerging as the plants are being planted. So interesting It's pretty interesting that we were able to find that pattern and execute on it. You guys have to let me know what other myth busting you want me to do. If you have any seed starting myth bust you want me to do, please let me know. If there's any garden myth busting you want me to do, soil, plant science myth busting, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be excited to hear what they are. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.